What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Layback Podcast. Joining us today is Don Day, the Warthog, owner, operator, founder, chief executive, all the fancy titles for Hog Performance, located not too far away from me over in Valdosta, Georgia. He is doing a lot of stuff remotely, but the actual pig pen is just down the road, just off of I-75. So if you're driving north-south, across America's highway, stop in and see Don. It's a little over yonder past the caution light, I think is what they say over there. But Don, thanks so much for your time on this Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to getting into it today.
Same, man. I'm excited to get this thing cracking.
Yes. All right. So as you know, I don't want to butcher too much, so I'll just punt it right to you for kind of the elevator pitch bio. So please tell us a little bit about you. I know we have that Ohio connection, although we never officially crossed paths when we were up there. You were a Findlay Oiler in your football career. You're from Akron, but I'll let you take away the rest.
I mean, that's almost everything, right? I'm from Akron, Ohio. Owner, player, coach of the Pig Pen, Hog Performance. I've been done a little bit of everything. I've been a director of strength and conditioning at Georgia Southern. I've been a lead at Driveline unsuccessfully. I've I've been part of a few private facilities, and then I kind of wanted to start my own thing and do it my own way and give my athletes the way I saw fit. And that's kind of what brought me out to create Hog Performance officially. So I'm a father of my son. His name is Malcolm Jude, and then a husband to Brianna Day. And that's, I mean, honestly, and an international traveler. That's
Yes.
my biggest accomplishment. I'm an international businessman. So yeah, that's me.
That's right. You got to put that in your Instagram bio though, with the plane emoji from place to place. That way we actually know, just like you're one of those girls. I would view you in higher regard if you did that personally.
Okay, you know what? As soon as this is over, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. This is gonna be
I'm,
the least serious of all the podcasts that you've had. Just so you know.
I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. I'm glad that we're off to the races with some chuckles from the jump. Maybe the most pertinent question from the beginning is how did a football player get so entrenched in the world of baseball?
Dude, I mean, honestly, luck and timing, right? So, like, I was actually working football at Georgia Southern, and I like softball, but I did not like baseball. Like, I've always enjoyed the game of softball because I had softball when I was at Robert Morris. I enjoyed how those ladies got after it, and to me, baseball at the time was boring and there wasn't a lot of things you could do with them. Now it's still boring, but like there wasn't a lot of things you could do with them, right? Like you can't bench press pitchers, can't lift in season, you can't do this or do that. And so I was like, I never want to train baseball because they don't train. So why would I ever want to take that sport? I'd rather have like a golf or even anything, right? And so I'm the assistant director of football strength and conditioning at Georgia Southern, and I am up for the director job. The director had left, so I'm up for the director job on the Olympic side, and that position always had baseball. So while the position was open, I was working baseball, working football. Then eventually they gave me the position, or I earned it, whatever. Maybe they just gave it to me, and I had baseball, and I was like, okay, baseball is like a power sport. I'm a huge conjugate West Side guy. Power is important, so we're going to train the way that I know, the way that I see fit. We're going to lift heavy. We're going to lift fast. We're going to run, sprint, jump, whatever it might be. We're going to have high days. We're going to have low days, and we're just going to get after it. And that seemed like, and I'm going to bench press pitchers. That seemed like voodoo or like heresy back in the day, and now everyone does it. I can't tell you how many nights I had conversations with athletic trainers about like they're going to be okay. Like weak things break. We just need to strengthen them. And for me, I was introduced to a really, really good brand of Georgia Southern baseball. Like we were really, really good back then. We were sweeping Georgia. Anyone that came to our house, we beat. Like we had so many pro guys on there. Chase Dolander was there during my time there. Like I thought Georgia Southern baseball was like the SEC of like the non-Power Five baseball world. And I guess I was just spoiled. You know what I mean? Like I was spoiled that my first time working with baseball was like the pinnacle of baseball at that school at that time. So, and then I just fell in love with it and it became really natural for me.
So from there, is that when you made the jump to Driveline?
So I went Georgia Southern, Arizona football, got a chance and opportunity to go back to, or no, Arizona football, met Connor Rooney, who was at Driveline. And I didn't even know what Driveline was at the time, but I was working with football at Arizona. And I was like, all right, I really want to kind of dive into the weeds on certain things. And I like these plyo balls. I didn't really know like who made them or why. And I was talking to like the baseball coaches at Arizona. They mentioned Driveline. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'll go out there and go visit. Met Connor Rooney, awesome dude. He came out to an Arizona football game. And so from there, Arizona, I went to Murray State. Murray State, because I missed baseball. So I'm like, I'm getting back into baseball. Like I'm doing all this baseball stuff with the quarterbacks that I have with the Arizona football team. So I want to get back to baseball and like run this thing out again. Went to Murray State, was an awesome time, great people. Skirka's awesome. And then I get a call like, hey, we're hiring Greg Beals. Love to have you. I need a guy that knows baseball. Went to Akron for 2 years, and then the position at Driveline opened up, and Rooney stood on a table for me, and I got out to Driveline.
Okay. And the timeline of this all kicking off, so please remind me because I'm decent with names but bad with years. So when you said you had Dolander at Georgia Southern at that time, so what year was this roughly when you began the baseball
Around
journey?
2020 or 2021, depending on yeah, I think it was like 2020, fall 2020.
Okay, so like fresh off of COVID, you get all these kids back, something like
Yep,
that at
yep,
least, or
yep. And
close to it.
Dolander, this was his freshman year. Then he transferred to Tennessee after
Tennessee.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you had some awesome teams. I know a guy we know mutually during that time. You had Hayden Harris as well, who
Oh,
made his
Hayden
debut with
Harris,
the
boy.
Braves this year.
Yeah, just a dog, man. Hayden's always been a dog. Like he was tough sometimes, but Hayden was a dog, man.
Yeah, he showed dog mentality in summer ball. And to be a dog during summer ball, you kind of have to be different. So you knew that was there when he comes in. I think we picked him up for summer ball with 2 weeks left to go in our season. And with 2 weeks left, I think he might have appeared in 4 or 5 games. He threw in our championship game and he threw like 3 innings scoreless. It was awesome. I think we already had like a 5 run lead. But it was just like, all right, just like foot on the gas pedal, Hayden go out there, and he just mowed through guys. I don't think it was three perfect, but he might have had like two base runners across 3 innings, scoreless ball. Just like, oh my God, like we're 3 outs away from winning a championship now. This is insane. But I think he made like 4 or 5 appearances over the course of two
That's
weeks.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, he
That
just
sounds
showed
like a
up
Hayden
and
Harris
was like, "Here,
story.
I'll take the ball. Yeah, just give it to me. I want to throw. If you guys brought me out here to be on the team, I want to throw. So here, give me the
That
rawhide."
sounds like Hayden. Hayden was always like do whatever you say, like worked hard and like really pushed himself. I thoroughly enjoyed working with Hayden. He was very competitive. Like he always wanted to be the strongest dude in the room. So I appreciated that about him.
Which is impressive when you see 5'11" ish,
5'11".
blonde hair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
down to his back. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like you don't think that is number one competition. I'm going to outlift you guy on first impression. Getting back to your story, I find this amazing that someone who now works in baseball didn't even know what a plyo ball was before 2021, 2022. And that's
2021.
even
Yeah.
like, and you're even at Georgia Southern who has good pitchers. It's not like it might not have been like number one thing in the program, but I'm sure there were plyo balls laying
Oh
around.
yeah.
And
I'll tell you the truth. I remember sitting down. It was like, what was this? This would have been late 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And the coach was talking to me, Coach Hennon, great guy, great coach, was talking about, yeah, like exit velos are up and like velo is up and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there like, oh, okay, cool. Don't really know what that means, but like cool. Like that's like you know what I mean? Like like I didn't know like all I knew was like 100 miles per hour was good. Anything under that I had no context of. You know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
if you're not pitching 100, I really didn't know like what that really meant. You could have said all the guys are throwing 95. Wouldn't know. Like if it wasn't 100, then I had no context to it. So
This
like
is so crazy to me. I feel like I'm talking to the kid who, like, I knew you in high school. You go off to college and you join a fraternity, and now your two favorite things in the world are PBR and the Bob Marley poster on your wall. And like you're just a completely new person. Like I cannot believe that it was only 3, 4 years ago that you didn't know these things. And I don't mean that as a
no
bad
clue.
thing. It's so weird in this world that everybody who is in this world seems like they have been in it since birth. And you just burst into the scene. You must have felt like a kid in the candy store when you were like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much information available and there's so many tools. These baseball players aren't soft. They are willing to push themselves."
I really did. Like I really like when I realized and I didn't know if it was like everywhere, if it was just Georgia Southern, but then I talked to some of the SEC guys, the South Carolina coach, like whoever it might have been, and realizing like, the really good teams, they do conjugate kind of stuff. Like so there's more of me out there that are all old football guys that are now bursting into the scene of baseball and making baseball more like what I thought it would never be. So it was pretty cool to really piggyback off of those guys and pick their brains and talk to guys like Kurt Hester was a big person that I talked to all the time about like what things I should do, what things I should try, what styles I should implement. And it's honestly awesome to, like you said, be a kid in the candy store and just kind of because I wasn't like I think what helped me was there was no preconceived like weird baseball stuff, right? Like I never thought like pitchers shouldn't bench press or like that you should only do this exercise for these people or that any exercises really matter or didn't matter. It was just me seeing what the needs of my athletes were and attacking those needs head on the way I saw fit without any preconceived notions.
There's a massive benefit to being an outsider. And I actually had this conversation the other day with a physical therapist that you aren't, I guess, faced with the problem of mixing up the forest and the trees. Like you can see the bigger picture versus all of us who have been in the baseball world forever just see the tree
The
that's
tree that's
immediately in front of us. Where you are able to like step back, look at this whole thing and be like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
yeah.
That's or you can turn your head the other way and was like, oh, well, that's not that bad. We can focus on that, or maybe we can expand that out. And
Yeah.
it isn't too dissimilar to how Daryl and I created Flex Pro Grip because it's not like we're PhDs or the MDs that have been researching this stuff and practicing it for years and years. We just read everything that had been published over 30 years, read it over the course of 2 to 3 years, and turned it into what FlexPro is now. It took somebody from the outside to realize what is good and what is shit, siphon through all of it, and piece something together for the betterment of the industry. And what it sounds like is really that's what you were able to do because you learned all the principles. You understand human movement, you understand human performance and all the things that go into that. And to you, probably enables you to continue to focus on training the athlete as opposed to just training someone who picks up a ball or someone who swings a bat.
1,000%. Like no matter whether it was baseball, swim and dive, track, whatever. My main thing was I want the strongest, most powerful, best athletes in the weight room. Like and compared to like whoever is in my immediate facility first, but like, hey, these are my challenges, right? Like my challenge is to take the athletes and have my athletes be known as the best athletes on this campus, right? And then it would spread to their competition and nationally whatever, but my immediate challenge that I always thought of first was we're going to be the baddest mfers on this campus. So it doesn't matter what sport you play, like you're just going to be the best version of yourself and you're going to literally show up every athlete that you see and they'll know you're a Don Day athlete. That's always something that I wanted, like to give to my athletes. that confidence and that pride when they walk around like we are the baddest ones on this campus.
I do want you to explain one thing a little bit more in depth. So hopefully you can play teacher for us for a little bit. You've mentioned
Yes, sir.
the
Yes, sir.
word conjugate training a couple times. Given the
Hmm.
nature of the podcast audience, I'd love if you could just break that down a little bit, given that most of the audience here are very baseball minded people who might not have as much weight room experience. Yes, we have a few of those, but it's a lot of PTs, it's a lot of front office people, scouts, parents, players. So please define conjugate training for us.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start off where I'll start off with the story of how it was founded in the way that most people recognize it today. So a long time ago, maybe in the 60s or 70s, whenever the Soviets were like really big into Soviet training and like it was like America versus the Soviets, there was a guy from our area, Louis Simmons. He was from Columbus, Ohio, and he realized that the Western periodization style wasn't working. Everything was linear, and by the time you got to the end of your 12-week block normally, you didn't have all the attributes that you started with because everything was blocked. So, like, let's say you're in your hypertrophy block, then you're in your strength block, then you're in your like power peak block. But by the time you get to the end where you're power peaking, you don't have any of the benefits of the hypertrophy or the strength, whatever it might be. They kind of tail off. Residual
Mm-hmm.
training effects only last so long, right? So Louis like, there has to be a better way, has to be a better way. And I can't remember who the Russian scientist that was in America, who was his like kind of his coordinator between Russia and America. But one day that guy hooked him up with a phone call or contact email. I don't know what they did back then, but he was able to contact people out in Russia. And Louis went over to Russia and he learned from these people. I think it was the Dynamo Club. And he started learning what they did. And what they did was like a conjugate style. What it is you're training all attributes all the time. So like you're not peaking everything all at once, but you're making sure that your training phases instead of blocks all connect so that you're never losing the benefits of hypertrophy, you're never losing the benefits of strength, and you're never losing the benefits of like absolute, we call it like people will call it peak, whatever. So he brought that back over to America, and West Side was kind of born. And West Side is only done at West Side. And now that Louis is dead, there is no more West Side, but the style and the method is called the conjugate method.
I appreciate that breakdown. I mean, that was awesome. I didn't know that whole history. I knew the
Oh, it
term
goes, it
conjugate
goes, it
training,
goes so
but
deep when it goes into like
yeah.
what Louis was doing, hanging out with the Russians. And you gotta remember, at the time, like, the Russians were like the enemies, right? So like for him to have a connection in America that could bring him over to Russia and him learn from Russia and then come back over here, like it was it was trailblazing.
And he was probably on some lists for doing that too. He's probably getting monitored and having his phones tapped and all that.
Probably. That's the thing that people like. I think that people, when it comes to training and stuff, like everyone knows the science of like whatever training it is, whatever. But like you have to dig deep and find old heads to talk to that will tell you those stories because it gives you more of appreciation for like what it truly is. Like I had a guy that was Tony Rouse. He's a strength coach at a high school in Indiana, but like he's a 50-year-old guy that knew some of those people. So like he was able to tell me that story. You know what I mean? I didn't know that story before Tony told me. So I really grew a new appreciation for like what Louis did and like how he did it. Or like people think about like Russian training, like they were all doing the same thing. No, it was the best methods were competing with each other, and the best methods won out because the best methods were used to get the Olympians that they needed. So it wasn't just like everyone was doing one style, like over here, like everyone Olympic lifts. No, it'd be like, hey, everyone's doing the best method of Olympic lifting that Don Day's putting out or Joe Schmo's putting out, whatever. So it was all competing all the time to try and be the best methods that they put out. So that was an interesting story. Like it's cool to learn those kind of things.
I want you to take those principles and educate me in the audience here. How do you juggle, I guess, sampling from the different stimuli that we care about, peak force output or max force output, speed, dynamic strength, endurance, hypertrophy, all these things that we care about that go into creating the best athlete, the best performer possible. But also maintaining a focus on either the lowest hanging fruit or not just trying to throw a new exercise or a new stimulus at someone every single week. Like how do you juggle that? Because I will be the first to tell you that when I was coming up, I thought I was on the cutting edge with my own training because I knew what the term muscle confusion was, or I had heard that before. So I was rotating, I had like 8 different workouts just for upper body. I had like 8 different upper body days and 8 different lower body days. And I would just do that like workout one, workout two, workout three, workout four, five, six, seven, eight, and switching constantly between upper and lower body, thinking that that's what was best for me because it was quote unquote muscle confusion. But then at that point, I would deadlift once every 4 weeks or something
Mm.
like that. So I was doing exercises so infrequently, but I thought it was best because of quote unquote muscle confusion, or I was exposing myself to all these different stimuli, as opposed to, no, I needed to work on peak strength or peak speed. I went overboard on the other side trying to get every single thing from every single part of every single program.
To start off on like a side note, like this is like off to the side, like the brain gets confused. Muscles don't have brains, so the muscle never gets confused. Like that's like a thing to throw out the muscle confusion. But for me, it is the art of coaching, right? Like knowing the science, but really the art, because you can switch exercises just every 3 weeks, like the recommendation would be, or like how Louis did it. But like, if you don't know the history behind what he did, then you're just kind of guessing, right? So, like, everything has a max and every exercise has a max. And Louis would switch things based off of where he thought his guys' weakest points were in terms of a lift, because their sport was to bench, squat, and deadlift really good, right? Not really good, but the best. Be the best
Yeah.
at those three exercises. So, like, maybe your triceps are the weak point, maybe your low back is a weak point, whatever. So he knew all of these things and he had all these things recorded. So it was a very in detailed exercise bank, right? With maxes and everything tracked to try and mimic that. Not that you can't, but try to mimic that would be very hard. So I don't try to be Louis Simmons by any means, nor will I ever think that I could be Louis Simmons. But like for me, going into part one, right, is I don't just switch exercises to switch exercises. I see if my athletes are maxing out on the exercises I give them, right? So like if you are benching I don't know, 185. Well, we're probably going to keep benching for a while. We're not going to just switch it to switch it because 185 isn't strong. So like now if you get up to 365, 405, then maybe you need a different stimulus because you're probably at the point where I could say you're probably strong, right? But like, we don't need to change it just to change it. Within that, let's see what kind of phase we are in of like our sport, right? Baseball is an easy one. Let's say we're getting on the mound and I'm really trying to work on your peak power. Well, I want you to generate force from a dead stop. That'll help like you turning on the switch like that. So we might have been bench pressing for a while. Well, let's go into a pin press where you have to generate force from the upper body from a dead stop. That's kind of touch and feel on that. Yes, is that scientific? 100%. Is that touch and feel? Definitely, because if you're a 135 bencher, then benching off the pins, like you're gonna be a 95-pound bencher. So like that, you know what I mean? It's just gotta have some feel about yourself. And when it comes to how am I getting all stimuluses all the time and not burning them out, or how do I know how to do that? Well, for me, it's layering in my exercises based off of the intensity of the day. So like I go a high-low system, but my undulation in that, or like how I lay out that week, is a moderate on a, like, let's say day one lifting, that's like a moderate intensity day for me. Day two is a high intensity day. Day three is a low intensity day based off of the total tonnage of my main lift. So what I mean by that is how I lay out my week right now is day one, we'll probably do for our main lift will be a squat. Day two would be a deadlift, and day three would be a bench. If you did 3 sets of 3 at 75% based off 100% max, if you squatted 300 pounds, then that tonnage will be whatever lower than your deadlift, which might be a 400-pound deadlift. So the tonnage would be different versus a 135-pound bench. So I can still fit it into a moderate, high, and low, even though these are high. I count them all as a high intensive day. So then the next thing I do I kind of like like I said, layer my system. I found out the other day I was incorrect by calling it a tier system. It's not a tier system, but I layer it. So let's say the A block is, we'll just say Monday. A block is max effort work, and that is going to be a squat. The B block is going to be my dynamic effort work. That's where I get a little bit more volume, and I get my, I'd say, explosive volume or power, whatever you want to call that phase. That'll be a bench press, like a bench press variation or some kind of pressing variation. And then my C block is my rep effort work or accessories. It's not really rep effort work, it's more accessory work, a little higher volume accessory work. And keeping it within those, I'd say, tiers. And within that undulation, I feel like I am achieving the ability to slowly progress my athletes without losing any of those physical qualities that I'm looking at. And as I get closer towards like my peak, right? I don't really ever peak. Like we're always trying to be the best. So like I'll go into that later because I'll get lost in the sauce myself. As I start to get higher intensity in my max effort work. Like I am always chasing max effort work. Like I'm chasing high intensity all the time. But as I start to get closer to 100% on my max effort work, my dynamic effort work kind of step loads. So I might go 3 weeks at 50%, then go 3 weeks at 55%, then go 3 weeks at 60%. So I don't go up too much in my dynamic effort work where my max effort work might go 75%, 85%, 95% within that same block, right? And then or phase, because I really don't do blocks because I'm doing everything all at once. So it's more of a phase. And then my accessory work, well, if I'm doing heavy max effort work, I try to keep my accessory work heavier. If I'm doing more volume, and volume to me is like 5 to 6 reps on my max effort work because my dynamic effort work is my dynamic effort work, we might be doing 30 reps of whatever we're talking about. 10 sets of 3 or 10 sets of 2, whatever it might be. My rep effort work, I try to mimic my intensity of my max effort work because my accessory work or rep effort work is like the bulletproofing, for a terrible term, of my body, right? That's mostly posterior work anyway, post delt,
Filling in the
hamstring.
cracks.
Yeah, right. So that is kind of a layout. It looks a lot better when I write it on a board, but that's a layout kind of what I do and how I do it. I'm always chasing like high outputs and max effort work. I need some volume and some work capacity. I find that in my dynamic effort work. I don't burn the candle on both ends. I make sure I kind of like phase it. And my accessory work, it complements my max effort work.
I would like to apologize for leading you deep down the path before allowing you to address the initial assessment that probably gets us
Oh,
to this point. It was not
this will
my
be easier
intention.
now for people to digest and not talk about.
Yeah. Not my original intention, but I suppose it like whatever. That's where conversation led us. So now let's backpedal
All right,
to
let's
yeah.
backpedal like 1,000 steps.
Yeah,
Okay.
backpedal 1,000 steps. Now that we know what program layout looks like, how do we get
And
to the
one
program?
that's just one individual, like that's a very specific, I'd say, layout for a very specific need within the different like I break it off of that. Like it's very needs based. Now, I don't want to say individualized. It's more personalized based off of what I think you need. But go ahead and do your question because I think I know where you're going with
Yeah.
this.
And I think we might need to bookmark what you just said, individualized versus personalized. I like that phrasing. But yes, the back pedal now to give you the reins to talk about the assessment process. I know when we spoke offline in setting this up, I told you one of the things I was super interested in is what you do with force profiling. You're very experienced with force plates. You've flown across the world to talk about these things and your assessment process. So that was that joke from earlier, everyone. It actually is founded in Don's work. Weirdly enough, I'm going to admit this. I almost called you Brianna there just because I looked over and I
Because of the
saw Brianna
screen,
on the bottom
yeah.
of the screen. But yes, so this is a lot of what Don does, and what drew me to him in learning more about his systems actually began a lot on the assessment side with force plates, force profiling, and everything that goes into it. I know there's a lot more than just force profiling, but I want you, like I said, to take the reins to kind of talk about the assessment and how we even get to deciding what's going to go into a program.
So for me, like day one, like assessment, right? And I can knock it all out within like 20 to 25 minutes. I try to time myself to see how fast I can be and efficient. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at your hips. We're going to look at your ER, just how much space you have to move your pelvis. I use a goniometer to kind of like measure that. Then I'll look at your T-spine, just your left and right, see how much room you have of rotation. You can look at hip shoulder separation using those two different things. And I tell athletes all the time, like, if there's not a issue, then there's no issue. But at least I have the baseline for you, right? So like the guy the other day, like I was like, hey man, do you have any issues? Because like from what I've seen, you look like you move pretty well in the mouth. He's like, no, I don't have any issues. Okay, cool. Well, then I don't need to prescribe you extra needs work. But if there are issues, then I start to break things down into like extra needs categories. And I don't want to go over all that. For pitchers, I also look at their shoulder strength internally and externally. Everyone chases velocity, right? High outputs are awesome. I love chasing high outputs, whether that be a 100-yard dash, whether that be throwing a hammer, whatever it might be. But you got to prepare for those high outputs and sustain through those high outputs. I think that's a major thing. So I see if you can sustain for those high outputs. I tell kids all the time, listen, just because you don't produce and accept the prerequisite force or the force the research tells us that you should before you go into top velocity or chase velocity, doesn't mean you're going to blow your shoulder out throwing. I just wouldn't recommend that you go through a velocity profile right now. You should probably on ramp a little longer or get stronger in your internal or external. But then the next thing I look at on the force plate, we go counter movement jump, squat jump. We do the 10 hop test to look at RSI, and then we do the plyo push up. And after that, we go into the ISO testing. I call it an ISO squat. It's really not an ISO squat. I mean, I guess it is, but like it's just an ISO test. I like that over the mid thigh pull. Not to say one's better than the other. The main reason that I do the ISO squat instead of the mid thigh pull is because the setup costs way too much money for me to buy. So I'm not saying it's overly expensive, but at the time when I bought the force plates, I wasn't going to spend another whatever it was to buy the setup for it. So I was like, there has to be a better way to do this in a cheaper way. Again, I am from Akron, but I'm looking at your overall max force production capability. Think of it like a max out test, right? Like a very non-invasive max out test. And there's not as many constraints on the ISO squat. So I see that guys, their net peak force is a lot higher than what would be on their mid thigh pull because I test that to there not being so many constraints within the test.
Right, grip's
Uh
not involved.
yes.
Learning curve is probably a little bit lower. You don't have to learn like positioning, how far you are from the
You
bar.
there it's
Yeah,
literally and I have to standardize it a little bit better, but like I'm not making any journal articles for this thing. So I
not
tell
yet.
them, hey, get not ever. But like I tell them to get into a position where they feel like they're producing power the best, which is usually like a quarter squat. And then I measure it, mark it, and make sure that I mark it down so I know every time it's that length. So from there, what I like to do first with like a new client, I like to take the assessment from the table test and the shoulder strength, if it's a pitcher, and put that into their extra needs categories, like their movement, things that they need to work on from a movement capacity standpoint. And I put that in the first phase because that's usually more of a volume-esque phase. So, like, we're trying to change some structural things, right? So, you're going to need a lot of time under tension, or you're going to need more reps. to make those structural fixes. And then as we go on through the program, as those structural adjustments kind of clear up, we don't have to do them as much. But at the beginning, we're going to be doing it 3 or 4 times a week. And then the phase that actually one of the colleges that I work with is about to go into, I start to look at, are you an MSD athlete or an ESD athlete? So basically, how do you prefer to produce force and what is your weakness within your force production? And before I can even look at squat jump peak power, counter movement jump peak power, RSI, any of that, how do you produce force? And what is your weak point within producing force? Because none of that, it doesn't matter. Like if you have a bad RSI score, and I'm ignoring what your path to getting that score would be, right? If you're trying to cover up a bullet wound for Band-Aid, I guess you would say from Akron. But anyway, so I break athletes into categories. You're either explosive strength deficit or your muscular strength deficit athlete. Muscular strength deficit needs more exposure to maximum effort work. Explosive strength deficit athlete needs more exposure to dynamic effort work or more dynamic, truly dynamic movements. So my MSD athlete, they're going to get 2 days of maximum effort work, 1 day of dynamic work because their superpower is that they're explosive, right? And twitchy. But so I won't take away their superpower, but I need to give them twice as much exposure to what they're not good at versus what they are good at. And then my explosive strength deficit athletes are the opposite. I give them 2 days of dynamic work, 1 day of max effort work because like I'm like an ESD guy. Like I'm a big, strong guy, but I'm very slow and I throw 60. So I need more dynamic exposures than I do maximum effort work. And that's kind of like how my profiles go during the phase when we get to the point where I'm really looking at like how you prefer to produce force. Then I'll start looking at some low hanging fruits within your force production testing. So like your counter movement jump peak power, your squat jump peak power. Is that a low hanging fruit for you in terms of bat speed or ball velocity? And that's where kind of programming helps out with that. You know what I mean? That kind of takes over right there. But at the beginning, I'm putting in a lot of extra needs stuff from a movement standpoint. And then as we shift through and I see some of those things clear up, then I'm really starting to hammer on the force production, which is the fun part for me because I'm a meathead.
Another question about the assessment process, and this is probably a bit more general. How did you decide on those exercises? You obviously have the constraint of time, and you want to spend as little time as possible, but learn as much as possible. So, how much did you have to iterate or learn or try different things to ultimately boil it down to really what wasn't that much? You might have said 8 or 9 different
It's
things
not
that
that
you're
no, it's
looking
not
at.
that much. It's so like for me, obviously, like I learned a lot of this stuff at Driveline. Like all like
Yeah.
obviously they did not create counter movement jump or squat jump, whatever it might be, but like how they use it was something I learned for however many months at Driveline. And shout out to them. I have seen over 14 years in college so many gimmicky movement screens, like hundreds of them. Like just I mean, I can't even remember some of the movement screens names, and they never really there was no like prescription. It was just like, hey, you can't move like this, so we're just gonna keep testing you until you do move like this. Like I was like, well, what's the prescription to that? Like, wow, how do we fix these things that you're saying are an issue outside of just retesting and retesting and retesting?
Also, why
So
does it matter? That's
yeah,
always
why
my
does it
big
matter?
thing.
And like if you're a good athlete, then and you're scoring touchdowns or setting records, whatever it might be, then the movement screen doesn't really matter, right? Oh, like I really like the simplicity of what they did. So I just, all right, I'm gonna not gonna mess up a good thing. I added how I do the shoulder ER/IR, even though I learned the metrics or the numbers I'm looking for from Driveline. I still thought it was like a very good thing to use. And then when it comes to the dynamic strength and or like the ESD MSD dynamic strength index and looking at that, I can't remember what year. It might have been 2012. There was an old T Nation article. And they talked about the dynamic strength index on this old like blog on T Nation. And I don't even know if that was the phrase they used at the time. This is about 13 years ago. That always kind of stuck with me. And I started to mess around with like dynamic strength index at the University of Akron with my intern Tyson Blosser and Eric Cressy's, I think he's director of sports science, Yaska Hook. He was an athlete for me at the University of Akron, and we all got together. And I think Yas was shadowing me or something, and Tyson was obviously my intern. He started talking a little bit about ISA and like how people produce force or whatever. And I was like, dude, you talking about like dynamic strength index? It's like, well, I read an article like 10, 12 years ago about this. And like I didn't do the I didn't do the ISA thing. Whatever. It is what it is. I didn't really want to use it. But I did want to look at ESD versus MSD. So we started to do that with my swim team as my test subject because they were so good, like nothing was gonna mess them up. I mean, we had four Olympians on that team. Like, so
At
yeah,
Akron?
University of Akron. Yeah, University of Akron. So
Go Zips.
go Zips. But we had some really good results, and we started to do it with baseball, and we saw some good results. And that's kind of thinking on like dynamic strength index and how I use that. That just brought it up with the force plate. Like, hey, I really want to use this with the force plate, and like, how can I use this with force plates? Then I saw that you could use it, and like, it would like auto populate for you, and I haven't found out that part. I just kind of I take one metric, divide by the other metric, boom, that gives me my where they fall in the dynamic strength index. So I'll have to figure out how to make that auto populate. But right now I'm just doing it by calculator. So yeah, that's just all the things I use. I think that the thing I see in baseball, like the private sector of baseball, is like you got so many people just trying to steal money for like football, like certain things that baseball private sector does would never happen in football. It doesn't happen in football. Like travel ball does not happen in football, at least to my knowledge right now. They might have travel football now, who knows? But like I just don't want to be taking people's money. And so like that's why I don't do these individualized programs or whatever. It's personalized to you. And there's nothing I can personalize better than telling you you produce force like this, and this would help you become a better athlete and produce force more efficiently. So that's really the main reason why I do the assessments is to see where your inefficiencies are in being able to do your job.
The only time football players are stolen from is when they go to the coach that throws out the agility ladder.
Oh, dude,
I
that's
had to
been the
put that out
same
there.
way forever.
I had to put that out there. I love that there is a massive football culture in Savannah, and there are kids from young ages that are working incredibly hard. And it's so hard. Like one, they don't. I can't really use the phrase "they don't know me from Adam" because I am Adam, so that kind of
Yeah,
that
that
I
messes. Yeah, yeah.
that colloquial phrase doesn't work. But they have no idea who I am. They don't know what I've studied. They don't know what I've done. Also, football is kind of a big time old head sport in the sense that you
Oh,
just do what your
yeah.
coaches tell you to do. The advancement isn't so much there until you get to the upper levels of college and pro ball. But I see these kids grinding away, like cutting into a cone or doing agility ladders. And if you are doing those cone cuts to actually like work on, I don't know, like actually trying to make a tight turn on a route, like that's one thing for skill work. But if you are doing quote unquote a ladder workout and your coach is out there filming you for an hour as you're just ripping icky shuffle and two forward, one back,
Oh, the icky shuffle,
like come
hey.
on. Yeah, so I know football stealing happens less, and maybe it's just because of the socioeconomic background of people who do play football, so you
Right,
can't get
right.
away with it. But they're not completely innocent.
No, no. I mean, yeah, there are some. I don't want to make baseball sound too bad, but that is something that did surprise me is the just the money's pot that is baseball private or baseball in general. And like, I mean, honestly, man, I'm probably the worst businessman in the world because like most of the money I get paid from my clients, I just spend back on my clients. Like we had steak dinner the other night. I made steak for my client and his brother, or I'll like buy whatever, and I'll be like, hey, you guys interested in this? I'll just pay for it. Or like I'm working with a college, and I was like, it'd be nice. These guys aren't the biggest guys in the world. It's a small school. I know they don't have like a big budget. I'll just buy them all protein shakes. So I called up, like, hey, how much for 3 weeks of protein shakes? Bet. Get it over there for him, please. Then like my dude Eric Jordan at Optimum Nutrition hooked me up. But like I just spend back on my athletes because like people probably have been stealing these kids' money from the time they're like whatever, 4, 5, 6 years old. And it's like, dude, why do that? I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, speaking of spending money, this is great. You provided the exact segue that I wanted to take anyways for the next question, which is how do you actually decide what you're going to spend your money on? Fortunately enough, that's how we got connected. You got super into the process with FlexPro Grip and wanting to provide this for your athletes. I put you and Casey Mulholland on the line, and lo and behold, a week later, you've got Casey's system with all your Hog Performance guys. I wasn't trying to make the sale for Casey, but I mean, he's got good stuff, so I understand. I don't know if it's that you're the sucker and we sold you snake oil. No, I'm kidding. Like I will bang for Flex Pro Grip for life. Like I fully believe in what we do, and I'm so happy to have you on board with it. But what do you think about, or what moves the needle for you to actually want to make a purchase and implement it in your system? Going back to that efficiency discussion that we had, there is only so much training economy. Of course, there's only so much financial economy too. But moving
Yeah.
beyond that, like even let's say like money is no object here. Athletes only have so much time and energy that they can give on a daily basis. Thus, it doesn't matter if you have every toy in the world, you can't use every single toy. Please take me through that process of elimination, I suppose.
I mean, even if I had I've been at some places that have given me a big budget before. I've been at places where I didn't have that much of a budget, right? I've developed the system of what I do over the course of 14, 15 years now. So biggest thing for me is efficiency and effectiveness. And like, does it tie into the system? So like, I'm not trying to just get flashy thing. Maybe you can't tell, or maybe you can tell now. I'm not a flashy guy. I really don't care about flashiness. So like, I'm not trying to sell anyone on anything ever. Like, if you're training with me, it's because I recruited you and you fit what I was looking for. I'm not trying to sell anyone. So I don't need to buy a bunch of stuff that I don't need just to impress people that I don't know. But like I have to trust in the person first, and then I have to trust that this is going to be something that will take the system that I've built to the next level and it's efficient for my athletes. Because if I think it's a great thing for my athletes, then I will make the purchase for my athletes. And it has to make sense in the either something for the workload man, because I push them hard. Like Louis Simmons was a PR get out guy. Like one of my guys that came down was like, dude, I'm ready to come down there and bleed through the nose again. Like that's how I train people. So I need something that's either going to help me in that process of what I think has made me over the course of time from a pushing high outputs because I chase high outputs, or something that's going to help me with the recovery from chasing those high outputs, right? I don't like to make educated wishes on stuff. I don't like to just guess. My system is already, I mean, I know it like the back of my head. I can tell you anything about it. The force plates just give me objective data, and it helps me to literally just paints a roadmap for me. I just fill it in. Like I could do it blind. With the Flex Pro Grip, like I've been dabbling with it. I keep dabbling with it. I know it's very important. The person that I saw use it, Dylan over at Driveline, really smart dude. He thinks it's important. I'm gonna keep learning. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm gonna keep learning and keep learning and keep learning. The implementation of obviously with Casey, Coach Casey, like mind blowing when he showed me his whole system. Like I was speaking about you guys over in Japan, like you guys were like the next coming of whoever, right? Like I was like, dude, these systems that they have are going to save you guys, blah blah. Like I thought his stuff was mind blowing. I'm not gonna be using the dashboard, but like hey, I thought someone else had the best arm carry I'd ever seen, and then I saw this. So like I think if it's important for my athletes, I will find a way to get it done. And that goes beyond like just the facility part that I have, right? Like I've always been that way. Kurt Hester told me a long time ago, don't let budget of your school dictate what you give your athletes if you believe that's the best thing for your athletes. So like over the course of my career, I mean, I've bought I don't know if they're still there, but I bought Tendo units for a whole weight room at Akron because we didn't have the money to do out of the budget. So I just bought Tendo units for the 5 racks that we use in the volleyball weight room, basketball weight room, but it was volleyball since I was in there. Bought a whole weight room full of safety squat bars because it's something that I thought we needed. So like if I think it's important, I'm gonna make the purchase and I'll just the money will come. You know what I mean? The money I get back will come or whatever it might be. Like I've never had to live on the street or whatever. So like I'm not ever worried about spending the money. And plus, you could die at any moment. You can't take the money with you, so I might as well just give it to my athletes. And that's kind of the same mindset I have now with the facility. Like, hey, a guy pays me, I don't charge that much. A guy pays me X amount of money, and then tenth of it I'm spending on steaks. Like, I don't care. Like, it's cool. You know what I mean? Or like, one dude came up and like I was like, oh, I gotta get protein because I want to make this guy protein shakes, but I'm not gonna upcharge him because this is my idea, so I'm not gonna upcharge him. So I'm making him like protein shakes for like the what is it the veggies and all that kind of. I got the veggies, I got the protein. I turned my bathtub into an ice bath. I had to run out, get the ice, and put it in the bathtub so it could be an ice bath. Like, and I took him out to dinner. Like every day we went out. Like I paid for his dinners. Like I probably paid X amount of dollars of what he had paid me was just going back to buying his dinners. So like, just the guy I am, man. Like with anything.
No, I think that really does show your true colors, and I think that is why people are drawn to you.
I
Stepping
hope so.
stepping away from, I think, kind of the hard data and information, the objective stuff we talk about on this. It's cool to see the human side come through with that answer. So I appreciate you sharing that. And it's one of the things I've really enjoyed from watching you grow your own individual business, as opposed to maybe what you were subjected to in previous facilities or what have you. And it's not that you can't be yourself when you are working for someone else, but when you are running your own thing, you can literally make every single
You can
decision
literally just
at
do
a
whatever you
moment's
want.
notice.
Yeah, literally do whatever. And I really enjoyed the freedom to do what I want to do. And not because like I don't think I know everything. I don't think that like there aren't other ways to get things done. But to me, I do believe that I know what I'll do from a sellout from my athlete standpoint. And I can't tell just meeting someone or talking to someone if they'll do the same things I'm willing to do. So they don't need to do the same things I'm willing to do. But if I'm going to train my athletes, then I'm going to train my athletes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I see things, man. Like I really enjoyed this working for myself. And plus I got to go to Japan. So you know what I mean? Like
Again, you with the segues, I appreciate it because the last topic that we have to discuss is your recent trip to Japan. I don't even know how to ask a question here other than you got to go work with a premier facility in the Tokyo area, which I learned before the call is a 34 million person metro area. So calling it the Tokyo area, like I almost can't even conceive the area that covers. But you went to Tokyo, you spent some time over there working with some of the best athletes that they have at a top facility, just teaching, right? Just teaching.
just teaching, just literally teaching and making jokes and eating horse and stuff. You know what I mean?
So yes, the cultural stuff, you got to do some really cool things. I saw you do some swordsman work. I saw you
Oh,
try
that was yeah, it was dope.
every
It was
food
dope.
known to man. But I'd love if you could spend some time on the teaching side. What do you feel you were able to most provide?
Dude, I think the thing that I was able to most provide was like a systematic approach to building a facility, right? I think problem solving, right? Like teaching them to be problem solvers, like using me being over there as an example for them to see like how problem solving works and that the prerequisite is being a good coach, right? And the relationships they have with their athletes, the relationships they have in the community, the whatever it might be, they already have. They should have that. Like that's a prerequisite for me or for being a good coach. But you have to be a good problem solver. So like they have all this technology and stuff. Well, how are you going to use it to solve problems? And that's kind of what I was giving to them and teaching them. We went over how to match intensities of your skill work with your lifting, how to tie that together, how it should be set up. That's the whole reason I talked about you and Coach Casey. Like, hey, these are some problems you're going to have because these are baseball problems. Here are some solutions. Like, hey, do you have anything to test, like, do like an arm score or see what workload management is, or like set up your pitching so that when you guys are working with clients, you don't have to worry about the pitching too, or whatever it might be. And like, what's the layout of your facility going to be like? What if someone has a UCL? What if someone's recovering from a UCL? What if you just want to overall strengthen grip strength at the parts that matter? Like, that's where like it was just like solving problems for them without being like, hey man, this sucks. Like, because it doesn't suck. Like, dude, they have 4 major cages with the ability to turn 1 cage into 2, so 6 cages, a weight room, an office room, a waiting area. Like it's as big as any facility I've ever been in. So like it was amazing. It's amazing. But and they have really good coaches, and there's, Japanese, not pro guys at the time, but soon to be pro guys, but pro guys will be coming through as the pro season ends. And it's like, okay, how are you going to run this? How are you going to manage this? How are you going to make this feel personable? Just all the problems that come with a facility. So I was able to teach them more than just the strength and conditioning. I was able to like show them what the layout should probably be like based off of the culture of Japan, that I was taking in what they were telling me. I was listening to how they want things to flow. So they'd be like, hey, this is what we do. This is kind of how our stuff goes. Okay, cool. Well, this is an issue right here. This is what you can use to solve it within the layout of what you're trying to do. So it wasn't just me going in saying, all this sucks. This is the way I would do it. It was, hey, let me hear what you're talking about. Cool, heard, this is what I would do if I were you guys. And that was honestly, dude. I mean, the mutual respect between me and the facility, like that was really cool. It was really cool to be up there and people like look at me like, hey, you're an expert and that's why you're here. It's like, damn, like that's awesome.
If you can get some sort of role as a traveling consultant to go from facility to facility and tell them what's good and what needs improvement, you might have hit the jackpot.
I think with working at I'm like a contractor for the Air Force Base down here in town. I do my pro guys. I actually have I didn't want any local clients, but I have a local client that's coming in today in like a few hours. I do consultant work with this college, probably gonna add one more college. And I do believe that with Japan, I'll probably be out there I think they were saying 4 months, 3 to 4 months. So like, I don't think I got any more for America. I'm doing the most American stuff I can, working with the military. I think that's about all I got for them.
You've got some exciting stuff coming down the line. And what's awesome from the personal side, that all of this really started when you just came home one day from work and you were like, yeah, I'm doing my own thing. I'm tired of working for the man.
Yeah, that is how it went.
I think we spoke on that day. We were trying to set up a phone call and I was like, how you doing? I was like, well, I just quit my job. I'm like, shit. Good for you.
It was a thing where I moved down here and I wasn't happy with the role, or the role was misunderstood, whatever. It was like, well, we were gonna move to Georgia anyway, so like guess it doesn't really matter, and I'm gonna bet on myself like always. And I did. And I think like obviously I talked to people, whatever, but like I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't bet on themselves. And as you know, as you're a business person, like if you believe in what you're doing, like bet on yourself. And like for me, I have a vision of how I want Hog Performance to be. Like my vision isn't really like having a major facility. That's not what I'm trying to do. Eventually I want my athletes to not have to pay. It's still invite only, but I want my athletes not have to pay to come train with me. So right now, how I'm doing that is working at the military. Now they still pay right now, but like working the military job, hopefully keep moving up in that, and then gathering about. Well, I probably don't want more than 12 to 15 people because I don't want the program to become like mass production and like scalable and like you're just okay, you jumped on the plate, so this is what you get. Like I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be personalized. I don't want it to be like McDonald's. And that's the vision I have for the facility. Like just keep it small, keep it good enough that like my guys feel like they're getting everything they can out of it. Keep it very like invite only and very hard to get to. And then just keep hammering away at the other stuff that I'm doing, going out to Japan every 4 months and enjoying like the lifestyle out there and like helping those guys grow their stuff. Like I feel like I'm in a very good spot to give to a mass amount of people. Not many people can say that they're literally working with the Japanese building, helping them build a facility. Not many people get invited to go over there. When I was over there, someone had texted one of the owners or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, you're in America," and they were like, "No, no, we brought this guy over from America to Japan," and they're like, "Wait, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." That doesn't happen out there. So it was really like I joke around on Instagram or whatever to say one of one, but like I truly am the only person doing this. So it's really awesome, man. It's really awesome.
This has been a tremendous conversation, Don. I really appreciate it. So, the last thing I am going to ask of you is to share how people can get in touch with you.
Oh man, poke me on Facebook. I get no. Do people still do that? Is that
I
still
don't
a thing?
know. I deleted Facebook after college, so
Oh,
I have no clue. I
gosh,
remember poking.
dude, that was like how me and my ex used to flirt with each other back in the day, but in the 2000s. But I'd say like you can email me. My email is the warthog5293 at gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram. You can either follow my personal account, DayD93, or my business account, which is Hog Performance, I believe. Yeah. This
It's
is
that
probably
easy.
the least scientific, in-depth episode that you've had. I've hoped I've made it fun though, at least.
No, this has been great, and I'm excited for the feedback from everyone out there because strength coaches bring a different vibe. And I think that was seen from the beginning when you said, "Let me go grab an energy drink," and that Rain made some appearances. So no free ads, but Rain, I guess if you want to sponsor the Layback podcast, let me know.
Rain guy, big rain guy.
Well, thanks a ton, Don. This has been incredible. I got to find my way over to Valdosta soon because that's not too far of a trek for me. But to
Dude,
everyone else,
I'll be by you. Not too. We're going to a football game some point in time before the season ends, but we'll definitely be at some baseball games.
wonderful. So you and I can work that out. I'm gonna finish the official outro here now.
You
Unless everyone else
you
wants to meet up too when Don comes to this football game in Savannah. I guess we're gonna have some sort of layback podcast gathering. Maybe I'll do a live show. That's what all these fancy podcast hosts do. But
you
to
should.
everyone out there, thanks for laying back with us.